I think the most important thing we can do is to teach our patients. The employees want to know, what does the doctor expect? And you need to tell your patients what's expected of them.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Raving Patients podcast, sponsored by Cloud Dentistry and DocSites. Today, we are going to be speaking to a practicing hygienist who really helps hygiene departments grow by reducing last-minute changes in their schedules and what you and your team can do to keep patients returning to your office. Today's episode is called Practice Growth Strategies, New Patients to Hygiene Patient Retention. My guest is Debbie Bittke. Debbie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm honored.
Well, I'm happy to have you. I know I've offered this to you a while back, and it took you a long time to accept the invitation. So I'm glad we're finally able to do this. So to start with, for those that may not know who you are, why don't you give a brief introduction to who you are and how you help dental practices?
Well, I'm Debbie Bittke, and I was born Debbie Seidel Bittke. I had a dream at the age of 12 to become a dental hygienist, and I did that. I graduated from USC, fight on Trojans, and I graduated a long time ago. And I've been an assistant professor there. I've actually been a hygiene department program director for the last 21 years. I've been the CEO and founder of Dental Practice Solutions, and I helped to optimize the hygiene department. In about 2007, there was an economic decline, and dentists were calling me to help them stop the hemorrhage in their hygiene schedule. And that's where we came up with this topic today. So I'll explain more about that.
So why don't you start us off? Let's talk about the current state, things you wanted to talk about to start off the podcast.
Well, right now we don't have any employees to work in a dental office, even a restaurant. So I don't know how to help you get a hygienist into your office. But, I do have some suggestions of how you can find a hygienist, and I think it will be more appealing if you contact me.
That's a very big problem in this day and age, especially COVID. There's nobody working. I literally, Debbie, I don't know. I was looking at a screenshot from another group, and they were literally offering a hygienist, I think it was in the state of Washington, for $100 an hour. I mean, it was crazy stuff they're offering sign-in bonuses to hygienists. So why don't you, if you have any suggestions to those people listening and viewing, so it's audio and video, just let them know, give suggestions on how you can find employees. How do you have loyalty so you don't lose employees? Can you talk a little bit about that to start with?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the big things is that dentists don't want to be a leader. And so the clients that I have, the employees are saying, we just want to know what doctor expects of us. So that is just foremost. You've got to set the expectation, and that will help you keep your employees. I was doing temp work in an office recently, and of course the dentist did have to, I don't work for free, and this is very valuable if I work outside of my home office as a coach. So he did pay me a very good salary for the day, not $1,000 or anything like that, but it was a good salary that I made to travel to his office and work there. And he never, ever said thank you. And he knew I drove hours to get to his office. So do I want to go back to that office? No. And I think this is what we're facing. People have been sitting at home doing whatever they felt like doing. Hygienists were making almost the same amount of money. I understand. I didn't make money when Trump was president. I didn't get that bonus. I was still working, as you know, Lynn, you were working with me on trying to help dentists recover from this. But they do want to be paid well. They do want you to be a leader, and they want to know that they're appreciated. Leadership from the doctor and appreciation are two things that will help you keep somebody. I think that what has helped is if there's a bonus for them over the next year, that's appealing. To me, that's appealing, but it's not an upfront bonus. It's delivered after 3 months all the way up until a year from now, maybe $1,500 extra dollars. And that's where I feel like I've been very helpful. It's very rewarding to me because I don't care where you are. I've worked with offices that are in low income areas that had a lot of patients come in who said they had no money, but they had $1,000 plus iPhone, iPad, Gucci purses. People will buy what they want. And it's my pleasure to help you, doctor, get your team to help their patients own their disease and want what they need.
That's great. That's great. As we said, hiring employees right now is very, very difficult, especially on the hygiene side. So let's talk a little bit about, and I think you wanted to make it your first speaking point, and we kind of went in a different direction. But let's talk about what your true potential is for 2022.
So I want to let you know that the offices that I work with, the doctors produce, and we have a formula for doctors to produce $800 an hour. So doctor, I hear that your colleagues, if it's not you, but I hear your colleagues saying they have 2, 3 or more patients. I just got off the phone coaching a new associate, and she was telling me last Wednesday, her schedule fell apart. And I'm teaching her right now. She's a baby dentist. No disrespect, but she's very new to working as a dentist, and she's slow. So we're trying to get her to $600 an hour. So let's just say $600 an hour is her goal. Most of her day fell apart. And how many times is this happening to you, doctor, that you have 2 or 3 patients that just don't show or call the last minute to not show? So I want you to add up every time that you have a patient change their appointment last minute, even if it's a change. Imagine the money per hour for your team to be scrambling to fill that. And a majority of the time I hear it's not being filled. So I want you to take $600 and put it in a bucket every time that happens. You're going to find that's adding up to over $100,000 for you alone. And it's happening every Monday morning. And the majority of you listening to this now, it's happening Monday morning. You come to your office and there are all these messages from your patients who thought they had something better to do than come to your office.
Yeah, that's a major problem right now. And, I don't know, Debbie, I don't know if you know, I sold my office October 1st. I'm now the associate in my office working probably till July of 2023. So another year plus. And, it happens, even me as the associate who was the main doctor for 15 years, it happens when patient cancel. And I literally have to travel to my office 2 hours by plane.
Yes.
And, getting there and finding out the schedule falls apart is debilitating to everybody. It hurts the morale in the office. I mean, it's a major problem. I don't think patients want to appreciate their dental appointments. And I don't think patients really understand what either them no showing or canceling at the last minute can do to an actual office itself.
One thing I want to say is I think the most important thing we can do is to teach our patients. Like I said, the employees want to know, what does the doctor expect? And you need to tell your patients what's expected of them. The one associate I was just talking with, she was saying, well, I know that these patients are like doctors' friends, so she doesn't want them to have to pay if they no show, and she doesn't want us to give them a hard time. And I said to her, I actually have a lunch date with a colleague, another hygienist, who's here in Arizona, where I live, as a snowbird, and we're going to meet for lunch on April 14th. So now I have other opportunities. There are other things I can do on April 14th. And how would that feel if I change our lunch date, which we're looking forward to, if I change that last minute? If I tell her that morning that I can't make the lunch because something else came up or I have a last minute meeting, how do you think I will make her feel, Lynn?
You make her feel lousy. You make her feel unappreciated. You make her feel, there's so many different emotions that someone goes through when that happens.
And your patients have scheduled their appointment a couple weeks ago, just like I have. Today, we're recording this and it's, I think it's March 28th. And our time for lunch is April 14th. So it's a little more than 2 weeks. That's what happens with your patients. They schedule 2 weeks or 6 weeks or 3 months. And you're looking forward to
6
them.
months.
Yeah, you are looking forward to them coming in, right? And so don't you feel disappointed? And do they know
Yeah.
that if they are your friend, how long are you going to keep that friend who keeps changing or canceling their lunch date with you last minute? Why should
Not
our
very long.
patients be any different, Len?
They shouldn't. So,
And you saying that these patients are your friend? Why would you want a friend to treat you like that?
so what suggestions do you have? We'll start with this. What suggestions do you have when you have a constant canceller or someone who doesn't show, or they come up with every excuse under the sun? I know you mentioned, charging a patient or charging them a cancellation fee. I'm sure there's ways to obviously give them same day appointments. So what is your suggestion with dealing with patients like this?
Okay, Len, so this is going to be, just cut me off if I go too long because I have many different systems that come together. Number one, we talked about the Monday morning thing. You cannot have your patients leave a voice message to change their appointment. I feel like that's a scapegoat. So your voice message, and by the way, we're going to talk about where you can go to get some of these materials at the end of this podcast. So stay tuned for that. But your voice message, I have a suggestion for you. And basically, I'll cut it short because I know I have limited time. You need to tell them and doctor your voice. They need to hear your voice saying, "This is Dr. Len Tao. Thank you for calling the office of Philadelphia Smiles. You have called during our after business hours, or we're in a team meeting. If you're calling to change your appointment, we do not accept changes to an appointment on this voicemail." Now, I'm going to cut it short here because there's more, and you can grab that script from the web portal on my website. But you can call me at this number. So there is an after hours number. Len, how many times, I don't know if you do this on your voicemail, but I'm telling you, I only had one instance. I've been doing this since 2010. I've had this system in place in 11 years. One time a patient called. And what happens? What do you, the doctor, say? What would you say if I said, "Len, I just found out nobody can take my Johnny to his soccer practice on Monday. So I can't come to my 4:00 appointment. And I wanted to call and tell you." What are you going to tell me?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I would tell you is that unfortunately we don't have any appointments for 6 months. So unfortunately, if you cancel today, I won't be able to get you in for 6 months. Many times they'll say, "Oh, I can't wait 6 more months," and then they keep the appointment.
Thank you. You know how to play this game with me very well. The other thing is you need to have an appointment procedure, and that's a change of appointment procedure, okay? And that's something that when they have a medical history update, I don't know if you update your HIPAA, I recommend a smile evaluation. And one of those things that they simply update is your change of appointment procedure. You're teaching your patients and consistently reinforcing your procedures in the office. Patients don't like policies, so it's a procedure. The other thing that I have, and I don't have time to go into it in this webinar, but it's called an R2R. It stands for reason to return. And every clinical note, whether it's the hygienist or the assistant, writes an R2R. What is an R2R? Brief overview. It's what is valuable to that patient. I'll tell you, most of your patients, money. They don't want to spend money. Time, fear, pain. You're going to put that value. You're going to put their oral condition. Do they have inflammation? Do they have a hole in their tooth? Break it down in layman's terms where they understand it. And what is that benefit? It's going to mostly be saving them money because now they don't need a root canal. They don't need a larger filling or a crown. It's very brief, abbreviated notes in the R2R. It's always carried down so you know what that reason is. And when they call to change their appointment, if you have Dentrix, Open Dental, whatever software you have, your team members should be able to easily click the button, look at that patient, and talk to them about the valuable reason why they need to keep their appointment. And like Len said, "I'm sorry, Len, we don't have another appointment for another 6 months." They're going to change. They're going to change their thoughts to change their appointment.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed is that patients who do cancel, a lot of times they don't, the reason they're canceling is they don't either understand the value that the appointment brings to them, or they don't know what they're needing. It's not because they have something come up. They just don't think it's an important thing for them to come to. That's really why they're not coming to the appointment.
Exactly. And I'm telling you, a lot of people say, oh, but they said something, they had this important meeting, they had something. No, because people will buy what they want. Like I worked in offices where the patients said they had no money, but they're with a Gucci bag, real Gucci, and they're holding an iPad and an iPhone's in their purse, but they can't afford their dentistry and their copay is maybe $50.
It's a value
There's something
perception. They
wrong.
don't value what you're doing for them. It's a
Yes,
value perception.
and
So
that's what I love
I agree
doing.
with you 100%.
It's what's happening with your team members. It's what words you're saying, and it's not just cavities or decay. Doctors will say, Debbie, I told them they have decay and they still don't schedule. That means nothing to them. Break it down like it's a hole in their tooth. There's bacteria sneaking in. Show them where the bacteria is sneaking in.
So I'm excited about it, and this is something we haven't talked about, but I'm excited about it. I don't know if you heard about a product called Pearl, Pearl. It actually is artificial intelligence to help you show people on their x-rays where there's actually calculus or decay or problems, and it can make predictions when patients are going to need treatment. It's brand new technology. I'm trying to get it into my office with the new owner, but I'm excited to see how this changes the industry when it comes to showing patients what is actually wrong in their mouths. So I'm excited about that, and I'm sure the hygienist will be excited as well. So let's talk about something else. Let's talk about cost-effective strategies for new patient growth. So where do you new patient growth is such a big topic nowadays. I met a woman who is literally a new patient acquisition expert, and it was funny that she used that terminology when I met her. But this is such a big part of dental practice is bringing in new patients, because without new patients, your practice doesn't grow. So what do you find are some cost-effective strategies for new patient growth?
Well, back in the economic decline in 2007, I came across an opportunity to offer wholesale teeth whitening products to dental offices. And so I said, okay, I'll give it a try. Well, one dentist led to the next dentist hearing about this. And before you knew it, I always forget his name, but he runs a boot camp for dentists who want to start up their own dental practice. They started calling me to order the wholesale whitening. So I've actually expanded that. Instead of taking impressions, we have whitening wands and a LED light that goes in the mouth. And the LED light, anyways, I don't want to get off track with that, but they started using this system with the tools to offer patients free teeth whitening. So when you have, I get these mailers all the time for offices who are looking for me to be a new patient there. And it says new patient exam, x-rays, cleaning, which I don't like that word, but it says cleaning and I understand what that means. It's going to be maybe $59. Well, what if you included free whitening in that and it's $199 or $99? So now you have the money for them to come in. They get a pro fee. They do not get gum treatment or gross debridement for that price. That's not listed on that card. But they get the x-rays, they get an exam, they get a prophylaxis, and they also get free whitening. And you're covering the cost. You need to cover the cost, your cost. But how many people do you think will come to your office?
Well, free whitening is always an intriguing option when you're offering free things. I mean, there's many different types of whitening out there. Of course, I was one of the first dentists in Philadelphia to offer a Groupon. So it was, a coupon that they got at a discount to come into my office. I did it in 2010. So long time ago. And one of the things we offered was a discount on Zoom whitening. And we had a lot of people come in, and, I think just giving them an offer to whiten their teeth is a great opportunity for some people. It just depends on if there has to be some, and this is more for just edification purposes, but you have to make sure if you offer that, you want to put in there, may not be eligible for whitening, may need work treatment done before able to be whitened. There's certain things that you have to do within the messaging that you're getting across to the patients, because patients come in, they have a mouthful of decay or they have gum disease and they want to get their teeth whitened. And then they get pissed off at you when you can't offer it to them because they are not they're not eligible for it, and then they write a bad review about you. So I think there's a certain way you have to handle it, but this can definitely be something that is going to help bring new patients into the practice.
Yeah, so that's a really great point that you brought up. I've upgraded the system during the COVID shutdown, and the LED light, the blue light does boost the whitening. The carbamide peroxide also has potassium nitrate, which literally blocks sensitivity, but that mouthpiece also has a red light. And Len, the red light actually works to heal the gums. So it's the red light, you can use it without the serum, the gel, and it will help with inflammation. It will help with canker sores. It helps. I have a lady right now using it because she has Crohn's disease and she gets sores in her mouth. So just by wearing that light has actually cut back. She does not have any sores in her mouth at this point for the first time in her life, as long as she can remember. So it will help. If they want the free whitening, we can't really whiten their teeth if they have a lot of calculus or decay, but at least they can wear the mouthpiece to heal the inflammation, calm it down.
Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. So, I know there was a couple of things that you wanted to talk about called the one thing. So there's one thing now this may be the one thing that reduces last minute appointment changes. Is that what we were talking about when it came to telling the doctors, to having the doctor answer the phone? So is that where you wanted to go with that question?
Well, I think the biggest impact has been what's in it for me. Like you said, Lynn, they forget why they even scheduled that appointment 6 months out, even 6 weeks. Like somebody comes in for gingivitis and we have 4346, we bill that. Well, we don't just put them into 6 months because we want to make sure that the inflammation has resolved. So they need to come back 4 to 6 weeks later. Well, a lot of times they call back going, I was just there. I don't need to come back. So they forgot why they were supposed to come back 6 weeks later. So when they know that they keep their appointment and they get a free whitening wand at specific intervals, that's the what's in it for me. They're more likely to not call to say they can't come in because they know they're getting something in return that's tangible. And those whitening wands, you go to Amazon, they cost like $20, $25 for just one whitening wand. And the doctors are buying from me because it's like 1/5 that cost.
Gotcha. So I have, and the way you just presented what you just talked about really triggered something I want to ask you a question on. So patients come in, they need scaling and root planing. Most practices do 2 quadrants one visit, 2 quadrants the next visit, and they bring the patient back 6 weeks later for a reevaluation visit. Okay. So they come in for the initial exam. You then diagnose them with scalings. They have 2 visits and they're supposed to come back 6 weeks later. So there's been a big discussion online about, like patients forget why they're coming back 6 weeks later and they don't want to come in for that, which is really a very valuable appointment, which is their reevaluation visit. Unfortunately, that reevaluation visit doesn't get billed to insurance. So it's an out-of-pocket expense in most cases for patients. Okay. Because the insurance doesn't pay for that after scaling. So what are your suggestions to make sure, and it could be from the practice end too, it doesn't have to be from the patient end. What are your suggestions to make sure those patients keep coming back for those, reevaluation visits, I guess you can say?
Okay. First of all, I want to say, unless you have a contract with an insurance company that you can't bill for this, you always bill for what you do. So that should be a para-maintenance. And I don't care if the insurance company said they're not paying for 3 months if it's para-maintenance.
But then it falls on the patient anyway. So I'm not even talking about, it's whatever the cost is, $205 for that visit in my office. The patients are still responsible for paying whether the insurance covers it or not. It doesn't matter. But the point is, and it's not just my office. It's any suggestions to get those patients showing up for those visits? Because it seems like there's some disconnect there.
It's really understanding what they value. And so if it's saving money, you're always, from day one that there's a diagnosis of the perio, that's your first opportunity to explain to them that you're helping them save money, not only on gum disease, but on other systemic diseases that can occur throughout their life if we don't put a halt to the gum disease. And it's constantly, we've got 2 more appointments that you mentioned, a half mouth and a half mouth. And it's constantly repeating and constantly saying it in different ways to get the patient to own their disease. And how do you get the patient to own their disease is to understand, come alongside of them and what's important to them. Speak to what's important to them. I used to ask my patients before I even knew so much about the oral mouth systemic, oral systemic connection, going back over 20 years ago, I would ask my patients, how long do you want to live? And they go, well, obviously I want to live as long as possible. And I go, well, do you want to have all your teeth? And they're like, well, yeah. I go, yeah, I mean, and so they started to connect with me just by saying that. Now we've got this mouth body connection that we can talk to them about. And in 2018, there was a huge a lot of research done that showed us that one of the key factors in preventing Alzheimer's is gum disease. And gum disease is a cascade effect. It begins with that gingivitis year after year after year. Those patients that say, well, my gums always bleed. If you followed along with them, I know people who their gums always were bleeding 40 years ago. And do you know how their health is today, Lynn? They have diabetes now. They have rheumatoid arthritis. And my husband works with Alzheimer's, and most of them have no teeth. And they're maybe 80 years of age. Does that help?
That definitely helps. That definitely helps a lot. I don't like scaring patients, but I use that tactic to ask patients, do they want to keep their teeth? And they look at me like, why? I'm like, because if you don't get this done, you're going to lose your teeth. So it's a very effective way to, I don't want to say scare them, but get them to have urgency to get things done, I guess is a better way of presenting it.
Lynn, I want to tell you something. What really changed my thoughts on this mouth-body connection, in 2002, I was just starting to speak at dental conferences, and my mom was my patient, and she had an endoperio abscess. The tooth was extracted. She told us for a couple months that she had the flu. And all of a sudden, one day, I get a call from the hospital that my mom has had a stroke, a hemorrhagic stroke. And I need to tell you that she never left the hospital. She ended up dying. And it all started because she had on the left side a tooth infection. She had a stroke on the left side of her body. Her kidneys started to fail, and she ended up dying because of endocarditis.
Wow.
Let that sink in. That's why I'm so passionate about this. I think my friends who knew my mom started sharing this mouth-body connection and explaining what happened to my mom.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. So we have only a few minutes left. I wanted to cover the last thing before we get into my lightning round questions for you, Deb, which is the fun section. Is what one thing will keep patients returning to your office? I
really believe that it's the whitening, that they know they get free whitening when they return. They want to know what's in it for me. And that whitening wand is it. I'm going to tell you something. Whitening as of 2021 is a $6.4 billion business with a 6% growth estimated until 2025. So doctor, why not tap into this for your practice? Everybody, the majority of people, when you ask your patient, what's one thing we can do today to make your smile the most beautiful? What do you think 70% of those patients are going to respond with? Lynn, what do you think 70% will respond by saying?
Sure. Yes.
Whiter teeth. Not everyone, but the majority of your patients will say, I want whiter teeth. So why not tap into
You're right about
they
that.
Want it. They're buying it on Amazon.
Or they're buying it at the grocery store. Or they're buying it at the drugstore. So there's a lot of places they're buying that stuff, and they're not necessarily buying it from the dentist or getting it from the dental office. And we know that's the safest way to do it. All right. So before we get information from you on how people can reach out to you, I wanted to go through this lightning round question of some questions for you, Deb. So the rule of this is I want quick answers. You don't need long drawn out stuff, just the yes and why, or the reason and why. So let me pull up this little app I use called pod decks. And
Okay.
okay, what have you given up on that you wish you've never had?
Oh, going shopping at Nordstrom's.
Going shopping in Nordstrom's. Okay. What led you to being a dental hygienist? I know you mentioned that you had a dream that you wanted to be a dental hygienist, but what really led you to that, taking care of that?
When I was 12 years old, we had to write a report on our career, and we we had a career day. So I did a written and verbal report, and I knew that dental hygienists could work many days or a few days, and they made good money. And that's where it all started. But I fell in love with USC, the Trojans. So I got accepted there, and I love dentistry. I don't know why. I just love teeth. And my mom told me to stop judging men by their teeth. And I finally got married to my husband 24 years ago.
That's great. If you had to open up a lemonade stand tomorrow, what would you call your stand?
Luscious Lemons by Debbie.
Okay. How do you go about generating new ideas?
I think scribbling. I have this pad of paper right now, and I really believe that, just scribbling. I ask my team members to always have, they get a notebook when I'm working with a team, and just the motion of writing, just scribbles. Really, I think there's a connection with the brain.
Look, I scribble on everything too. So I'm a total scribbler. So I agree with that 100%. I scribble a ton on every piece of paper I scribble. That's really funny you said that. How do you define success?
I think success is a feeling of comfort and joy. If I'm happy, and that's my joy.
Hey, that's nothing wrong with that. What is the number one thing people are always asking for your help with?
The majority of dentists come to me because they say they have a hemorrhage in their schedule.
Okay. And what business-related book has inspired you the most, or what is your favorite book?
Oh my gosh. I love Get a Grip. Gina Wickman. I just recommend it for every dentist. It's very simple. In fact, I give that book to my team members and the doctor, and we go through that book.
Okay, great. And do you keep a journal, and does it help you?
Right now, I'm not keeping a journal, but that is usually one of my resolutions. And this year, I'm not doing that.
Okay. And last question, have you ever turned down a client, and why?
I actually have. If the doctor will not get on a call to even talk to me, I won't go any further. I need the doctor, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, they need to take ownership and they need to be a leader. Otherwise, nothing works. And I don't want you to waste your money with me.
Perfect. All right, Debbie. So we've reached the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you wanted to offer the listeners and viewers a way to download some information. So can you give them that information they need to do that?
Yes, we have a wealth of information on the website, dentalpracticesolutions.com. And there are some pages at the top, and you can go to the training vault. And there we have the lifetime whitening, and that helps you to keep patients on your schedule. There's just a wealth of information. I'm constantly adding to that. So I invite you to grab that.
And if anybody has any questions for you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Reach out to me at Debbie, Debbie, at dentalpracticesolutions.com. I'm happy to answer any questions, get on a call with you real quickly.
Perfect. Debbie, thank you so much for sharing your insight and expertise in this space. I appreciate you being such a great guest. Guys, if you like this episode, please share it with the other dentists. Please let them know to download the episode, subscribe to the podcast. The podcast is released Fridays at 5 a.m. in the morning, so you'll always have one when you wake up in the morning, a new episode in your inbox. And like us on Facebook, review us, do everything you can. For those that don't know, I have a new book that was just released called 100 Tips to Getting 100 Reviews in 100 Days. If you want interest in that, go check out Amazon. The book is available for purchase or download on Amazon as well. Debbie, thanks again for joining me. And remember, your reputation matters. Until the next episode, we'll talk to you guys soon.